Hello there, beautiful souls and beautiful humans. I am Rosanna RozyGlow Hannis, and I am delighted to have the wonderful Cathy Domoney with me today for a beautiful conversation about co-creating StarPeace Eutopia. You are here on my YouTube channel, which is all about us envisaging a reality that we would like to co-create, our personal idea of a paradise of how the world could actually be in a conceivable way. So it's not impossible as a dream. And this phenomenal being is a mother of 5 children, 5 neurodivergent children. And we've just been having a conversation before we got recording, which is just so fascinating. I am delighted to be with you here today, Cathy, and really excited for how this conversation is going to unfold. So I would love to just invite you to introduce yourself as you would like to today, and then we can just get straight in there.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's early morning here and it's late where you are. So yes, it's amazing to have these meetings when we're finishing off and starting up. So my background is I'm obviously English originally, now living in Australia. Always been interested in human behavior, the reasons behind human behavior. So started with very young. When I was about 5 years old, I remember looking around my family thinking, this isn't how it's supposed to be. Like, I don't feel like this is how we're supposed to be in the world. And so from a young age, was very quiet, learned how to be quite invisible. For an easy life, because I was the youngest by at least a decade from my siblings, and just found that if I was quiet and I observed, I had an easier life. And so I learned through observation how not to show up. So it was an interesting experience for me, and I learned how to deal with very difficult personalities from a young age, and how to appease difficult situations. Always had a very strong sense of what was right and wrong, but didn't always apply in my environment. So learned how to navigate through that. And then started sociology studies, and I went for counseling and things because I knew I wasn't quite where I was supposed to be, but from quite a young age, I wasn't quite sure how to reconcile that. So I was reading a lot of philosophy from quite young, and I was thinking, there's got to be a different way to be. I feel like, I feel instinctively like we're supposed to be nice to each other. And so then went and did a degree in sociology because I just was fascinated by the reasons behind behaviors. Then went into teaching, always had a natural affinity with kids. And then when I was teaching, I was just in love with who the children were, not so much with the curriculum. So I found that I was given, as the young novice teacher, my first year of teaching, I was given, quote unquote, the worst class in the school. Very, very challenging behaviors, not very great academic progress. And they were very disjointed from each other. There was no cohesiveness in the class. And so the first 6 weeks, they hated me and I hated them. Like, it was just like, oh my God, I've chosen the wrong career. This is torture. Because I was showing up as I thought a teacher should show up, like what we're fed through this, films and media and all that sort of thing. Anyway, I went home on the first half term because we had 3 terms in England. And I thought, this isn't working. Like, I need to show up differently. How am I going to show up? Because I was young. This was my first gig. I had no kids or anything, just recently married. I thought, I'm just going to love them, because we're going to spend all this time together anyway. I might as well just love them. So I went in, and that's what I did. I just started loving them. And every time they made a mistake, I went, hey, this is a thing, but it's not who you are. Look who you are at your core. You're this, you're that, you're amazing. Connecting them to their inner brilliance. And that might not have been academic, but once you connected them to their inner brilliance and their gifts and their innate value and worth, their academics fell into place. So it was really interesting that once you got those core pieces connected and amplified, they naturally did better at school because they felt good about themselves. And so that was that. And then I went off and had my first baby, and then still this thirst for knowledge. I'm still studying now. Like, I will never stop learning because I just love the application of knowledge to show up for my family stronger, to show up for my clients stronger. And so studied psychology and counseling and hypnotherapy and coaching and all of those amazing, rich sort of psychological studies. And then we emigrated to Australia with 3 children. We've had another 2 children here. And being a mother to neurodiverse children has been the greatest gift of my life, because I realized who I was on that day that we found out was not going to cut it. I just wasn't a good enough parent. Like I wasn't going to be strong enough for them. I wasn't going to be equipped to show up as the parent that they deserved. And so that was a real sort of catalyst for me to do even more inner work, my own healing, really looking inward of okay, this event is triggering. How can I go inward and heal that within myself so that we can dissolve that in our environment? And so it's been extraordinary. It's been a massive gift. Of course, it's been challenging, but any parent faces challenge with their kids, no matter how they are, what combination of their kids are. And what I have found through my own personal journey and through the journey I've been through with countless families is once we all show up and go inward and self-reflect, miracles really ripple throughout our whole lives. So I've had conversations with families that I've worked with, and the first conversation is the kid saying, fix my parent, and the parent saying, fix my kid. And then by the end of our time together, they're going, well, I didn't show up as I could have. I really put them at a disadvantage because I didn't share all the information, or I didn't tend to regulate myself before I had that conversation, or whatever it was. And so that's that inward sweep of dedication to showing up in the highest integrity that we can show up in. Once we can all start doing that, that's actually how we achieve world peace, is when we go inward and we look at ourselves first.
Amen. That's it. It's over. Done.
That's it. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, folks. See you next time.
I love the parallels, because like, obviously, I mean, we got to meet through a membership that we were both in, and you were kind of towards the end of this membership when I came in. And, you know, as you're saying about, you know, from the age of 5, having this awareness, I remember being very, very young, about 4 or 5 years old, kind of walking around going, I don't think these adults really know what they're doing. Like, I don't get it. There's all this heavy vibe and everyone's so serious and stressed, and I could be shouted at 1 minute and then cuddled the next and told how lovely I am. And there was this total sense of like not really feeling safe in this world. And I love how you've been talking about, you know, your quest for knowledge and that thirst for it. And for me, I was very blessed at the age of 14 to have a mum that basically saw I wasn't happy and was open enough to seek something beyond sort of traditional, let's say, psychoanalysis. And I ended up having a series of rebirthing sessions, which got me really interested from that age in how our time in the womb can shape us, and, you know, the memories we have in our unconscious and our subconscious beliefs that are formed from that. And I love how, you know, we can go into all of that, because one of the things you and I really share is this, like, simplify it, get to the root, you know, let's just really strip back away from the head noise and come back to what are the fundamental principles we can live by that will support us to trust ourselves to be able to meet the needs of our children, whether they're, you know, neurodiverse, neurodivergent, whatever, you know, labels are given at this point to help us to understand. And, you know, we are living in a world where it's getting more and more crazy. You know, when I say more and more crazy, we've moved, you know, we're now exploring beyond gender. We've got gender neutral. We've got, you know, all sorts of things that are possible as a result of both technology and also medicine, etc. And our capacity to question what natural is. But I'm really interested from your perspective, because we were talking about love and kindness and how they're wonderful words, but actually what that actually means in the depth of the reality of facing things that are uncomfortable and challenging. And it's almost like on this planet, we're kind of born at a disadvantage on the one hand, like it doesn't seem to pay to be honest. It doesn't seem to pay to speak the truth. The world isn't quite in this world where, in the space where we can just get straight to it. And one of the things that I've come to understand from listening to you speak is like when it comes to, neurodiversity, there's a lot of honesty. There's real honesty that comes through in communication from these children. And you also talked about the fact that there's an awful lot of laughter in your house as a way of, being able to bring healing to the craziest things in the world. Is there anything you'd like to share on that at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think with all of this exploration into what people are identifying with, the core of that is to stop trying to compartmentalize people, right? That's the core. Let's just take each other as we are. Let's stop trying to force our preferences onto other people. I don't want someone to come and tell me how to show up. I know how I want to show up. And I don't feel I need to go and say to people, you need to be this, you need to be that. The only core things, and it's so interesting when you say we need to simplify, because simplifying actually can be very confronting. So I agree, we need to simplify to the core of, respect, kindness, love, integrity, honesty, honor, accountability, responsibility, all of those things that we all need to show up. I feel those are the non-negotiables. I feel like we're here we're supposed to be supporting each other. We're supposed to be connecting with each other. Not I'm going to connect with you if you think the way that I do, if you look the way that I do, if you do everything that I do. That's not what it's about, guys. We're supposed to be open to, oh my goodness, how interesting. Let me expand my consciousness and see it from this perspective. Let me understand that not everybody experiences the world the same way that I do as a middle-class, white, English-speaking woman. Let me listen. Let me stop speaking and let me listen to the experiences of others so that I can better show up in those circumstances to be connected and supportive and loving in those situations. And, people say, oh, kindness is really important and love is really important. And of course they are, but not when it's just convenient. Like you can be absolutely in the trenches trying to get back to kindness and love. We've been through it as a family. My kids have been hospitalized through bullying. Physically
Tell me more about that. Whoa.
Well, without going into too much detail because of my kids' privacy, but they've been in situations in several different schools where things have happened and they've had to have medical attention because of it. Now, here's the thing. I have a very human reaction to that. So my children are my world. I have loved them since before conception. I'm a very dedicated parent. So is my husband. We just are in love with our kids. Like our kids, they challenge us, they push us to grow. They do all of the things to help us show up even more powerfully every day, because we have this urge to want to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be for these kids. So when somebody has hurt them to the point that they're being hospitalized, you can guarantee I'm having a big human reaction to that. Okay. So I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm appalled, I feel vengeful, right? Now, this is the point that we have lost in this technological world, is the practice of the pause, because everything's so instant now. So what we choose to do as a family is sit with that and work through it. And it can be dark, and it can be unkind within myself. It can be nasty and vengeful and angry and bitter within myself. But that's not a point where I start sharing how I feel about the situation. That's the point where I go inward and go, wow, I've got some stuff to work through here.
And how do you work through it? Like, what's your ways of doing? Because I was saying I have to scream and shout. I might go out in the woods. I'll be somewhere contained, but I have to own just how poisonous what's inside of me feels. Like, one, in my wanting to hurt others, because I've heard you say this as well. It's hurt people that hurt others. If you're in a happy state, you don't end up doing that. But when you see someone you love having been hurt, even if you can understand that it's the result of someone else being hurt by others, it's still, like you said, a very human reaction to actually have to go, hold on a minute, I can see in me here, there's a need to self-regulate. I need to pause. I need to feel this and not attack someone else with it. How do you deal with it? What's your ways that really work for you?
Well, I think, number one, allowing yourself to feel it. We've got to stop band-aiding emotions. We've got to stop positive thinking everything. Positive mindset, yes, because in a positive mindset, you can go, I'm going to feel these feelings right now, but I know this will pass and I'll get back to a good place. Positive thinking is, I'm fine, it's all good, I'm fine. It's not all good, it's not fine. I've been triggered. I'm in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. I've been triggered in this is trauma. Right? So acknowledge it, work through it, because this is why people get mental illness, physical illness, is because they're pushing it down because it's not socially acceptable to have these feelings. Well, we're having them. So it must be natural because we're having them. So let's hold space for them. Let's honor them. Let's work through them. And this is the point. Let's work through them. So when I've had these big feelings, and I've had it recently, it's like the universe tests me now and again. Are you walking your talk? Like, are you actually doing what you're leading others in? And that's really important, to stay in integrity and do the work yourself. If you're going to be coaching other people, you need to do it yourself. And it's hard. And I had a thing recently where it was very confronting. I was in full fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And so I just sat with it and I worked through it, and I might write it out and I feel the feelings and I get angry and I'm really angry with the other person. And I can, in my head, say everything that I want to be saying and all of those things. But the thing that pulls me through, the thread that I hold on to while I'm in all of this turmoil, is getting myself back to a place of love and peace and kindness and compassion and all of those things, right? And what I tend to do to get myself there is allow myself to work through all of these human feelings. And it can be messy and it can be painful and it can be scary and confronting. Okay. But honoring it. We've got to honor it. We've got to understand that we are here to have a human experience, and that's part of the human experience. And enlightenment isn't never feeling those feelings. It's understanding that there's something better. There's a better place from where we can respond. And so what I do is I imagine that the person on the other side, because I'm not quite ready to bring them in yet. So the person on the other side is someone that I really desperately love. Imagining, right? And at that point, then I can get into my maternal space, because I'm very maternal, and say, okay, what must they be going through to have shared their pain in this way? And then you start coming back to love. Then you start coming back to center. And then you feel compassion. And at that point, you reach through and say, hey, let me connect with you. How can I support you through this? How can we all be part of this solution? Because if we can reach through the pain and go to the core of that person and help to heal them from that point, how many future victims do we save? Because once they start to heal, those behaviors dissolve. Yeah,
I hear you. I hear that. And I think that's so beautiful is what I'm hearing is you get yourself to the point, as you say, where you imagine this is someone you really, really love. And you use the word imagine, and that's so important because, you know, when it comes to how our brains work, they can't really tell the difference between what's real and what is imagined. And as you put yourself in that position, it's like what we watch, you know, I'm passionate about entertainment and how it shapes our expectations of the world. It affects our physiology. But by bringing in imagination, you go, all right, if I really, really love this person, how would I do it? Because we are living in a world where we want to blame, we want to judge, we want to make someone else suffer for our pain. This has been going on for aeons. Now, my background is about intergenerational trauma, and I truly believe, even if we only go as far back as World War I and World War II, we've never recovered from the loss at that time, the succession of so much stuff happening very quickly. And, you know, in every nation, you'll have some form of genocide, you'll have some form of civil war. There's something in our bloodlines that this is just our human self, never mind our galactic, cosmic, you know, whatever else we are. And this is why we're talking about StarPeace, because we're here in my desire, the whole creation of these conversations and this channel is to speak a new reality into being, to conceive a new reality into being, where we can actually imagine things can be different in a tangible way. It's not wishful thinking. It's not shining the shit, right? Where you're actually, like you said, positive thinking your way out of actually the fact that there's a lot of pain that must be addressed. You can't pretend it's not there. The only way we can really get to a place of healing is to accept it's there. And some things will truly feel unforgivable. You know, some people can get really stuck in, I have to be able to forgive to move on. And it's like, maybe we just need to come to acceptance as the first bit. And actually, as you said earlier, it's the inner journey. You've said that from the start. It's your own relationship to yourself and your own pain then allows you to be able to be there with compassion for someone else, whether that's your child or the perpetrator of the wounding. Oh, sorry about this.
I've done it as well. I don't know what's going on with the Easter. It's the rabbit ears thing.
Yeah. And, you know, in this world, we're, again, I think I feel like we've got a lot of very traumatized adults that are trying to lead us and just perpetuating more pain because they don't know how to deal with their pain. And yet we have, what, 40, 50, 60, even more years worth of awareness now of how to process pain and move through it. And it is about applying these tools, right? It's about using them ourselves, walking our talk. One of the things that I've heard you say, because you were on the Montel Williams show recently, which I was really enjoying listening to, and that's definitely worth checking out, folks. It's a different conversation than one we're having today, but it's the Free Thinkers. He's got a lovely channel. I'll put the link in the text box after, but, you know, it's about free thinking. And he kind of started off with a very pessimistic kind of sense of what's going on in the world. You know, it's totally there. That has to be addressed. And you came in and had a beautiful conversation about it. I feel that I'm excited about the fact that you are as excited as I am about conceiving what else is possible. And you've written many books, you know, you've written books. I think Dear Bully was one of the books you've actually written, which you said you wrote with your daughter. It's amazing just to be addressing this issue full on, straight up. And again, wanting love to be at the heart of it. I can't remember what I was going to say a minute ago, something coming through, but it's kind of gone now. This idea of working with parents, because that is what you're doing. You said you're working with it in the mainstream now. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and how that's looking for you?
Absolutely. What I'm finding is parents are so courageous, especially in the last few years, of everything that's been happening out there that's affecting what's happening in here. And parents have been showing up. A lot of people, not just parents, a lot of people have got PTSD, they've got trauma that are now that the adrenaline's wearing off and things are starting to calm down, this stuff is starting to come up for people. And I was having a conversation over a business breakfast the other day, which is, don't normally go to things like that. And they're all in business suits and I'm in my woo-woo, big earrings, you know, flip-flops and all of that sort of thing. And I went in and I just spoke about what I did. And I was actually quite taken aback how impacted the group of these professional, very corporate people were with my stuff. And they were reaching out, and particularly men. were like, really need to have this conversation. Thank you so much for having this conversation. Really enjoy what you do. Love your energy, love your vibe. And I was like, you know, there's this big shift in consciousness over the last few years with Black Lives Matter, with COVID, with everything that's happened. And it's really sort of been a catalyst to people who were possibly in a bit of a routine, just going through life in a routine, not really thinking much beyond their own experience. This has been a huge shift for all of us. We've been forced to expand our consciousness. We've been forced to change the way we show up because we had no choice. But with that is a need for people to be supported, really supported, nourished, loved, no guilt, shame, blame. That's the old paradigm. That is no longer relevant. It's not helpful. It's actually holding us back from our own healing, you know, and this idea that, especially with raising children, you know, this is right, this is wrong. To an extent, yes. If you're violating the rights of somebody else, that's wrong. I don't care what anybody says. You don't do that. Do you know what I mean? That's not negotiable. You don't do that. You show up with respect. You show up with kindness. All of these things. But in the unfolding of everybody within that scaffolding, they're going to have experiences. Some are going to work. Some are not going to work. And I think we need to change the conversation around that. But we need to do it for ourselves first. Like, we've got a whole generations of parents right now that have understood this generational trauma thing. They've understood it's a real thing. You know, are we going to drag everything up from all of the unresolved trauma from the way we were raised? Are we going to drag that on and filter it through our parents, our children parenting to the next generation? Or are we going to go, hey, I'm just going to take some time and I'm just going to reassess. I'm actually going to connect back into myself, into my intuition, into my primal programming. And I'm going to decide the way forward for us. And, you know, through a lot of well-meaning people who haven't healed their own trauma, we've been,
help us.
yeah. But we've been, number one, compartmentalized away from each other. And number two, we've been sterilized away from our own innate programming and intuition. So I have incidents, I'm not going to share everything on a public forum, but I've had incidents in my own parenting with my kids where it made no logical sense what I did. No logical sense whatsoever. But because I've done so much work on myself, because I'm dedicated to my own evolution, my own healing, my own growth, I intuitively knew without a shadow of a doubt it was right in that situation for this particular child in our family.
That is the key, and it's so important, because that's what when you say sterilized, when you say scaffolding, this is like ping, ping, ping for me, because I talk about divine architecture. I talk about the fact that we are creating the scaffolding of the new world around the construct of the old world, so we can dismantle it without it all coming tumbling down in a way that's really destructive for everyone. So we are building this new world around it and conceiving of a new reality, because we know fundamentally what we don't want. If we know what we don't want, we can work out from that what we do want. It literally gives you that opportunity to look at the other side and open up to new possibilities. But one of the things that I was really challenged by as a parent, we talked about this, you know, again, we're not going to go into the details. We have to respect our children. It's the bottom line. My daughter's now 22. I had one child, desperate to have her from the age of 8. She was in my energy field, right? But like, once she came in and she was instantly conceived, there was no difficulty. She came in. I knew I was dealing with a child that was a lot more sensitive to other children. I had, you know, I looked around in comparison, my best friend's baby that was the seed that brought my little one along. So easy. You put her down, she just smiled, didn't have to do anything. My little one couldn't put her down for 2 seconds. You know, there's all sorts of, there was a lot of demands. Now, the difference between you and me in what I'm hearing is I had absolutely no trust and no faith in myself, in my intuitive ability. I did when it came to like looking after her on a nutritional level. I did, in terms of getting signed off, like, you know, the health visitors were like, she knows what she's doing, she's going down her own path, but she's well researched, you know, well educated, she's going to take care of this kid, we're not worried about her. But when it actually came to behavior, when it came to the fact that you know, there was no such thing as female ADHD at the time when my daughter was really little. I'm sure you have the same, because one of your children's 20 now, right? So your daughter, yeah. So ultimately, because my daughter's dad had been misdiagnosed with depression, it was later diagnosed as ADHD. We kept bringing it up. Is there a possibility? Is there something going on with that child? No, your child's fine. Da, 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 da. So I wanted to be like, you're normal. I'm going to treat you like you're normal, whatever that is. And I found myself in this crossfire where I literally, if she didn't want to get out of bed in the morning, I was faced with the decision of either having to pull her physically out of bed to send her to school, or deal with, in our country, you get fined for not sending your kid to school. And it's like, which way is it? What is it? You can't hit your child. I'm not saying for any reason that would be a good thing to do, but you're not supposed to force your children, quite rightly. And yet, if they don't comply within the systems that they're expected to comply with, the parent is then blamed, and, you know, there's some form of punishment that occurs. Nowhere is support. You go and get the support, you try and get the support. I personally involved social services to try and help me at one point. And honestly, it was like, really? Do I listen to you or do I listen to me? Because to have trusted my instincts, as you're talking about, it would have made no sense, the decisions I would have made. And I was actually scared. I was scared of the implications of not doing what I was told, which was, again, part of my conditioning. Back to you. So I just wanted to share that. I think a lot of parents, that was the other thing, how we cope as parents. There's a lot of self-medicating going on, a lot of suppression, right? It's like, whether it's alcohol, whether it's smoking, whether it's food, whether it's, you know, trying to distract ourselves with one relationship after another, TV, whatever it may be. It's like we don't know how to face the not knowing what to do. And as part of us weaving this new reality, I would love to create the idea that our systems of support and education would actually really support parents to believe in themselves, really support this idea of, you know, the whole child being looked after, and not it being all about intellect. Tell me more on that and what you see as, I mean, you've obviously got your children in school, they're all in school, they've been through school systems. How have you helped your children within the systems to be well nurtured and nourished within the school system?
Well, I'm very loving, and I'm very kind, but I'm also fierce, just quietly fierce. And I've always been the biggest advocate for my kids. And so I really had to get over my own limitations, lack of self-worth. And as I keep coming back to the healing of my own trauma, to be able to show up and be the parent that these kids need. Mm. And so the times that they have been misunderstood, I've stepped forward and been the bridge between them and the professionals that are helping them, trying to help them, and misunderstanding them. And here's the thing, I don't go in ready to tear up the place, assuming that they're trying to make my child's journey difficult. I go in with the energy of, you have no point of reference, you've misunderstood this behavior, I'm going to be the bridge between you and my child, because we're all part of the same team. And so I found that when you go in with that energy, 99% of the time, the teachers and the professionals and whoever's working with your kids are so relieved to have that insight coming from a loving space rather than an aggravated, angry space. Because what happens if you attend things with aggravation and anger, you're just making the gap between you and them and all of us and the solution wider. You're not helping. And so again, it's working through your feelings and assuming that something's going on that you don't know about, and going in with an open mind and having, you know, conversations steeped in love, integrity, respect, kindness, compassion, empathy, you know. And I've had the most fantastic conversations with teachers where I've said, hey, let's pretend you can't offend me. Let's have an honest conversation about what's going on, because I need to know, because I want my children to reach their full potential, and I need to know where to step forward to facilitate that. And so don't talk in riddles. Let's have a proper conversation. But all of these professionals, and they are professionals, are so scared of the implications of having an honest conversation in an effort to get your child from point A to point B to unfold, to reach their full potential. You're not able to access the whole of your child. And I think we need to change the conversations that we're having. And a lot of it is steeped in our own trauma, because we're scared of being judged as a bad parent. And so we have conversations like this. We say, my child's captain of the football team. We don't say, but he treats his peers like crap. And that's something I really need to work on with him, because that's not, you know, long-term sustainable. Or my child's an A-grade student, but he treats the teachers with contempt. So what we tend to do is compartmentalize our children. And what that's doing is it's not giving them the opportunity to evolve. So I had a conversation about one of my children the other day, and I had this conversation with the teacher. I said, listen, I feel like we're talking in riddles here. Let me give you permission to speak clearly. I know who my child is. I know the whole of my child. I love every part of my child. Okay. There are areas that he's doing really great and, you know, developed. And there's areas where I need to step forward and support him to reach his full potential in those areas. But you need to talk to me. And so I said, how much of this is he genuinely is not able to retain the information that you're giving him, and how much of it is he's being a lazy little bugger? And he went, I think there's some of it where he's being a bit lazy. And I said, right, from the conversation that we've had, I trust you to be able to discern when it's one or the other. And so when he's needing more support, please support him. When he needs a kick up the bum, please give him a kick up the bum. Because I said, he's got so much potential in him. He needs to understand that he needs to show up for himself in all ways. And you know what? I kind of really admired the fact that he tried to get away with doing nothing. I thought, well, fair play. You've really tried that. You've experimented. It worked for a while. So well done you. You played that blinder. And now I'm on to you, kid. And now you need to step up for yourself. And you know what? He has stepped up for himself. He actually feels so much better about himself. And we've had a laugh about it, but it wasn't like, right, you're going to get punished because you did it. I was like, hey, you're a cheeky little bugger. You've got away with that for a fair few weeks now. Well played. And now we're going to move into the next phase. And he did. And it's a whole load of experience. And he's come out a stronger, wiser, more focused, because he's showing up for himself in a different way. He's experimented and he's learned. And isn't that what we're supposed to be here for? Is this natural unfolding? So the scaffolding is, hey, you can't treat other people badly. You can't treat yourself badly. You know, all of those things are non-negotiable. Like if any of my kids turned up with that, it's like, no, that is not acceptable. That's not how we show up. And there's going to be consequences around that. But as for the individual experiences and how he's unfolding himself organically, what a joy that is to witness.
I think you've said something really important that is about actually when someone can see something in us, like as part of our journey of exploring our own edges, right? And you know, as teenagers, it's all about breaking the rules, right? And finding our own place from being told what to do, rebelling, finding the middle way that works for us, because ultimately we can't eat ice cream all day, just like we can't drink alcohol all day, just like we can't, you know, there's a place where everyone finds their middle ground with the right support. But it's that I feel that even in my adulthood, it's like, oh my God, I'm still getting away with that. No one's actually noticed I do that. No one's actually, you know, no one's called it out. I don't always say call it out. No one's brought light to it. No one's reflected that they can see this. And so I think it's invisible. So part of our role as parents is to be able to go, yeah, you cheeky little bugger. Like, you haven't been going for a shower, have you? You've just been washing your feet. And like, now we've caught you out or whatever. But it's not about shaming. I think this is huge, because we are living still in a blame culture. And this goes right back to what you're saying about the professionals that are there to support your child, our children, to be their best version of themselves, to thrive rather than survive. And they can't really say the truth, because actually someone potentially, I mean, it's the same in the world of birthing, and it's really frustrating. You can't use common sense. You've got to make sure the machine says it first, and this says it first, and the nice guideline says this, because you've got to follow this and follow that. Otherwise you could get sued. Otherwise someone's going to blame you. And it's like, hold on a minute. Where have we got to where we've actually so sterilized and divorced ourselves from the essence of our being, which is our heart, our capacity to know here rather than here? And that sense is our inner sense. It is what I feel is our soul connection. So you know about heart math. I know about heart math. For anyone who doesn't know about heart math, there's more receptor cells from the heart giving information to the brain than the brain to the heart, right? So the heart knows before the brain can compute. And there's something here around us celebrating, as you said, diversity. I mean, you said it beautifully at the start, rather than everybody having to be the same. The beauty of whatever the reasoning, whatever the causal factors of our diversity, divergence as humans, right, is that we get to step outside of this blinkered view, which we're all conditioned until something knocks us out of that conditioning. And if we're taught how to be able to see beyond our own perspective, too, like a lot of what you've said, I'm not a Christian per se, but I'm hearing a lot of Christ consciousness concepts coming through in terms of compassion leading the way, discernment, forgiveness, but there is that sense of accountability and responsibility. And like, it's not about, I remember reading this on your Facebook page, it's not about your kids just doing whatever they want whenever they want it, because that's not real life. Like, you can't. If we go right back to the days where we didn't have all of the mod cons that we do, you had to get your firewood, you had to make sure you had food to eat, you had, like, there was a whole load of chores that had to happen on a daily basis to allow you to sit by the fire in the evening and actually take stock of the next day, right? And we've got very, how to put it, Jeremy Clarkson talks about the generation of snowflakes. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. But here's the thing. When my fundamental belief for everybody in my orbit is, I see the brilliance in you and I'm going to hold you to it.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. That can be really, really hard, because our kids have been through bouts of depression. Nobody's immune to it, you know? And all through that, it's about holding the space for them to be where they are, but shining a mirror to who they are at their core, to just keep reminding them, just keep reminding them. And the interesting thing is, this is, again, coming back to intuition. And I'll tell you a very quick story about my son. So he was about 8 years old. He's 17 now, but he was 8 years old. He came home with this homework, right, where they had, I don't know how many different animals, a fish, and they had to figure out how many different combinations of fish they could have in these tanks, right? So he went away and he did it like scrap, 5 minutes, I'm done, I'm going to go. And I said, no. There's way more combinations than that. This is a process for you to go through to understand the, you know, all of these things where you can you have to be logical, and you have to imagine, and you have to categorize, and you have to all these things. It's a process. Like, you're not going to go for 5 minutes. I said, you can do better than that. Well, we had this almighty row about this piece of homework, because I was like, you are capable of so much more. And I felt at that time it was important for him to do this, because it was important for his own self-worth to understand he could take a challenging task and nail it. Right. And so anyway, we had this big row about it, and I said, I'm not budging. Like, this is, you can do so much better. You are so intelligent. You have these reasoning skills. Go away and really think about this. So anyway, begrudgingly, he went away and thought about it. And he did his homework, and it was very thorough, and he actually ended up winning an award for it. Now, I had forgotten about this, but it was so interesting the other day, because obviously I've got, as you have, adult children, so they reflect back on your parenting. So my youngest is 5, my oldest is 20, and it's so interesting to get that feedback. And he said, you know, that was a real turning point for me. And now he wants to go to medical school. I don't know whether he changes his mind or whatever, that's up to him. But that his goal at the moment is medical school. So he's a youth leader, he's at work, he's one of the school captains, he's all of these amazing things. And he pinpoints the change in his trajectory from that piece of homework.
That's amazing.
And it's these daily little things that we go through with our children that are so fundamentally important on building the foundation upon which they build their adult lives.
And it's temporarily uncomfortable for us, because you had to it. You couldn't be nice, Mum. You're like, no, this is not cool. You're capable of so much more.
I promise you, there's times that have been excruciating for me as a parent. And I mean, I remember my daughter, who was about 15 at the time, she'd been invited to this party. Now, she had frenemies. And any parent out there whose kids have got frenemies, you know the pain for the whole family for that, because it's just excruciating. And anyway, she'd been invited to this party, and these were the friends that would go out without her and post it all over social media and all of that sort of thing, which was really, really painful. And she never really fitted in, but it's where she was. Like, she was thrown into that, and she had to survive in that group. Anyway, she was invited to this party. She was 15. The party was going to be in the middle of nowhere. There were going to be 18-year-olds there because the brother was 18 with all his friends. I'm assuming there's going to be alcohol there. I don't know if there's going to be drugs there. It's in the middle of nowhere. I know it's not going to be supervised because I know the background. And I was like, oh gosh, I understand why you're so excited about it. I'm going to take it under advisement. I'm going to talk it through with Dad, and I'll come back to you. So in my head, I'm screaming, no, 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 no. But I'm like, I can see this is so important to you. So I'm going to give it the time and consideration that it deserves, because it's so important to you. We talked about it, you know, my husband and I, and whatever. Then we came back, and I sat down with her and I said, hey, and she went, it's a no, isn't it? And I said, I am so sorry. I cannot support you in going. I'm so, so sorry. And I just said, this. And she went, I know. And I said, I understand how much this means to you. And I'm so sorry I can't support you in it. But I really have to step forward and say, it's not going to happen. And I appreciate that you're going to feel pain, and you know, you're going to feel left out, and you're going to feel even more compartmentalized from your friends. And I can in all good conscience, I can't do it. So what happened was, she was part of the decision. We really honored her part in it. We honored her feelings, everything about it. It wasn't just a no, we're the parents, you're not going, that's it. It was, I really feel everything you're feeling right now. I'm so sorry. It's actually torture for me to say no, but I have to, because it's the right thing. But those are the points where she's an adult now, and she says, I'm so glad, Mum, that you made those decisions. She went, I really hated you at the time. I went, yeah, that wasn't a subtle point that you were making, but she took it on the chin pretty well. I felt wretched. I really felt wretched about the whole thing. And I remember another time, something had happened, and because she hadn't stepped up and done what I'd asked for 2 minutes, one of our little ones was in danger. And so it's actually the only time we've ever grounded any of our kids. It was a serious offense. Our little one was in danger because she hadn't done what she'd been told to do for 2 minutes. And so we said there's going to be a consequence. And so she was grounded for a month, which didn't mean much to us because we don't go out anyway much. But it was just the principle of, right, there's a consequence, because it was serious. And in that month, her best friend had a birthday party. And that was horrendous. Like, it was so hard. And I said to my husband, well, we can't let it go, because we can't say you're grounded unless something fun happens. We're saying this was a serious situation here. We're so lucky we've still got this little one with us because you didn't hold his hand or whatever it was. And I remember on the day, because my husband works away and then he comes home, and he'd come home that day, and I was in the kitchen making dinner, and she was quite rude to me. My daughter was quite rude to me. And he sort of looked at me and was like, are you going to let that fly? Like, what's going on? And I was just like, leave her, because I understood she was responding from a place of pain. The punishment was that she couldn't be with her friends that night, and they were all getting together, and it was just awful. And I felt terrible. But these are the keys that she says to me. I'm so glad you did that, because if you hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have grown. I wouldn't have learned. I wouldn't be so independent now. And she's fiercely independent. She's fiercely herself, you know, and it's been wonderful to see that unfold, because for such a long time, she tried to fit into this tiny little gap that they had made for her, that she was so much more than that. But by holding her true to herself, she was able to unfold into the fullness of her.
I'm sure I am not the only one who's had a very emotional response to what you were just saying, Cathy, because I remember the moments when my mum literally tightened herself up to do the right thing, but couldn't, meet me in the heart and go, I know you're going to hate me for this, but you know, this is why, and involving me in the decision. And in the end, as a child, all I did was went, I'm going to do it anyway. You're not going to know about it. I mean, I was sneaking out every weekend from the age of 13. Thank God I lived in Singapore. What I was getting up to was a nightmare, but it was a very safe country. Stealing from her, like, she became my enemy because there was no emotional connection. And in fact, you know, she died 13, 14 years ago. I was still angry with her, you know. And I think the thing is, it's so difficult. As parents, we all have to face the not being liked and not being, you know, making the decision that's the right decision, but knowing that our children are actually going to hurt as a result of that decision, and we're hurting as a result of it. But we are the ones that can see the bigger picture. They can't. And if we are so insecure in ourselves and are not doing the deep inner work that allows us to self-regulate and say, hold on a minute, this is the right thing, even though it's going to be unpleasant, uncomfortable, etc., it's still the right thing, because in good conscience, I can't make that other decision. I would only be making that other decision to try and gain some friend points, because I feel so insecure in myself. I need my kid to like me. And we feel like it's either or. We don't see that there is a bridge, as you've talked about as well today. I love how you're talking about it, because it's like 3D, 4D, 5D consciousness all there, you know, the 4D bridge between the conditioning and then the soul energy that's coming in. And what I'm hearing you talk about is how we can actually be heart-centered parents that can allow this soul-led, I feel, leadership within to guide us and our children through this world. Because there is an element of, I was watching a documentary about rewilding cats in cat, you know, that have been orphaned in the Amazon the other day. It was really interesting, really harrowing on one level as well, because it was to do with a young veteran who was in quite a messed up sense himself, and the position he was in was really hard. But he had to go from, you know, nurturing this cat, it's an ocelot, I can't remember the name of the type of cat, but like, you know, be his dad, his mum, and then at some point kick him out, you know, like get him to fend for himself, and it was so hard for him. It was heartbreaking, but it's the only way this animal was going to be able to survive in the wild and thrive, because all of the elements were in place, and this was the key thing now. And I think this is so important for us to recognize that. I was talking to someone else who I'll be interviewing shortly, who's an amazing, you know, psychotherapist and psychologist, and works with cerebral palsy and all sorts of elements to do with challenging parenting situations and for the children. And that question of why do we have children in the first place is what comes up. You know, what is it that propels us to bring children to this world? And I'll be the first to say, on the one hand, for me, I felt a true soul calling to bring this child earthside. On the other hand, I had a whole load of unmet needs, and I really wanted someone to love me unconditionally. And I think I know I'm not the only one to say that. This is part of our journey, but there's also this is what you do. You get to this age, you get married, you have children, you buy your house. You know, this is the expectation of our society, our culture, and we're growing beyond it. But we're not going to grow beyond the fact that pain is a part of life. You know, the fact that we will experience emotional pain, the fact that we'll experience some physical pain, some psychological pain. And how do we actually move through this? Everything you've said in our time together is the way through. And I'm so grateful to you for doing this, because it is the bridge. And as you say, these are moments. My own child went from, you know, potentially not being with us by choice to choosing life. And I asked her, what was the definitive moment for you? I couldn't work out how she switched. And she said to me, it was actually being at the funeral of a friend of hers that took his life and seeing his mum on the floor. And she just realized in that moment what a selfish act it would have been to not consider the impact on those that love her. I'm like, wow. Like I often have said, you know, you've turned out great despite me. And that's not fair, because actually there's a lot that I did, you know, instill, and I own that. But I think I really want to speak to the shadow element of parenting as well, and to say it's not easy.
No,
you know, it's not easy.
It's so interesting when you were saying, well, we keep coming back to love, and we keep coming back to love as being challenging. And, you know, we had a situation here where we changed schools because our kids weren't thriving. Well-being and all of this sort of stuff is so important to me, and it wasn't there. And so we had, I would say, a 2-year period where myself and one of my kids were completely at odds with each other. Or what should I say, they were at odds with me. And it was a really, really hard 2 years, because we're very affectionate, we're very loving, we're very tactile, we're very connected in so many ways. And that was completely withdrawn from me. I was still there wanting to give it, but it was being refused, and I was cut off. And that was so incredibly excruciating for me as a parent to live through. And there's so many times when I was on my knees going, I'm not strong enough for this. I just want hugs. I want kisses. I want love. I want the connection back. But because I've done so much work on myself, and because I do trust myself at the deepest level, I knew this was the right thing. I knew he was in the right place. And at the times when I nearly gave in, I just thought, no, this is right. This is not easy, but it's right. This is going to be amazing long term. This is going to be fantastic. And it was really, really hard for me. But here's the thing. I love him so much that I'm willing to sacrifice myself in the process to elevate him to his true unfolding. And the interesting thing is, not long ago, I was driving him somewhere. I'm just a glorified chauffeur these days. And out of nowhere, he said, "Mum, you did the right thing." And 2 years of praying that I would hear those words.
Yeah.
And now knowing beyond the shadow of a doubt, had I succumbed to my wants, wishes, needs, he would not be anywhere near where he is now.
No. I know so many parents are going to really appreciate this conversation, because also in this term that you used about self-sacrifice, it's slightly different, I feel, to what you said, in the sense that self-sacrifice in many ways in parenting can end up us being the martyr, right? Like constantly putting our own needs out of the way.
Oh yeah.
This is a
That's
very
a different thing.
line. Yeah.
No.
Like,
yeah.
I know this is not going to make me popular right now, and then this is painful for me to deal with, but I know deep down this is the right thing to do. And I had to make some really tough decisions as well. I actually never thought that I'd be in the place I am now with my child, that she actually respects the choices I made. She said to me probably a year ago, she's like, "Mum, I think you did an amazing job bringing me up." And I literally, my jaw dropped, and almost, I just nearly fell off the chair. I'd taken her out for lunch, but it was that, what? You hated me for at least 8 years. Like, I mean, literally, like, really.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not an easy journey. And I think for many of us, we go, oh, God, what was I thinking? Like, you know, there are going to be moments where we really go, I didn't sign up for this. And it's actually, yeah, you did. You just didn't know what it was really going to take. And I love that you also said you prayed for 2 years to hear that. This is, again, engaging the imagination, because there were moments in my journey where I'd literally go into fight, flight, freeze. My child would be going through an episode of whatever she was dealing with at the time, and I'd be like looking at her like a stunned rabbit, in my head going, I'm calling in a miracle, I'm calling in a miracle, I'm calling in a miracle. Like, literally, I don't know how to deal with this right now. And then taking that time when there was distance between us to think, how would I like this to be? What's my dream? How would I like, you know, when I was really worried, and I think many of us, we know this, when our kids are exploring and we don't know what they're up to. And we know, like, I used to explain to her that there is a place I can protect her, and there's a place that she's so far out in the water where there are sharks that I don't know how I can reach her. And that would be when I would go, right, what I can do here is I can pray. I can pray for her to stay connected to her light, her soul. I can call in the cavalry of non-physical support and physical support, and I can just imagine her well and happy. I have no idea how she's going to do that, and it's not up to me to micromanage, but I can choose to want for her to be well and happy, right? It's her choice whether she takes that on or not, her free will. I also, you know, we have to respect the choices of everyone as an individual, but we're also here to lead the way. And you said it earlier, and I want to come back to it, is it's not okay to hurt ourselves. It's not okay to hurt each other. It's not okay to hurt the environment. We flip this around: love yourself, love each other, love the planet that we're on. Now, nice words, as we said, just like kindness and love. What does that mean? Because it's not some of the time, it's all of the time. And whatever self-harm looks like in this world today, let's call it self-abandonment. Let's call it self-betrayal. Let's call it self-rejection, all the ways that this shows up. And our world isn't yet telling us how to manage pain. It's telling us how to push it away and ignore it, the mainstream world. But you're out there, I'm out there, we're here. There are so many others as well going, look, there is a way through. And it's just like labor, and I love to bring everything back to giving birth. The way out is through. You can't, you know, you can obviously take the pain away, have an epidural, gas in there, whatever, but there's still a process of going through that has to happen. And then we learn how to support our children, ourselves, each other, to move through the uncomfortable. That's where I see the real healing is possible. Anything you want to kind of say as a final word of this particular conversation? Because we've gone forever. Well, I could anyway.
Well, it really is. It all stems from connection to self. And I know those are very, you know, flighty words, and people go, oh yeah, gosh, yeah, okay, connect to self-love, blah, 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 blah. But it's so key in everything. And the reason that I have had personal and professional success is because I trust myself so deeply. Mm. And, you know, in the parenting sphere, my core focus for each of my children, and they all need something different from me simultaneously, they're all different people, is what is best for them. Mm. They understand it or not, but trusting myself so deeply that I know it is best for them. Not, I'm going to do that because it's going to look good and therefore I'm going to be judged as a good parent. I'm going to do that because I'm too scared of the alternative. I'm going to force them down this road because that's what the checkbox on the list said I should do. But go, I trust my inner voice so deeply that I know this is what is best for them. And so I'm going to hold this space of disconnection while they travel through it, and they evolve and they show up and they grow into this space that they never wanted, and they're fighting and they're angry with and all of the things. Because I trust myself so deeply that I know it's the right thing, and I have faith that it's going to unfold beautifully, and I will have done my job as their guide to hold that light for them. And it all comes down to that deep trust of self, which is the work that I'm doing now, is getting parents back to that deep primal trust of self.
That is the key. And I think this is, you know, very, very important to remember that it's the root of everything, is that we have been on every level, and whether it's by intention or not, separated from that deep trust. And there are lots of reasons why, but actually nature holds the key to everything, even whatever else is going on in the world. We come back to our breath, we come back to the trees, we come back to the earthing, the grounding, etc. But it's the access points and the skills you have in all the work that you do, you know, the skills I have in the bloodline clearing, the bringing those who are very spiritually connected, but not earthed, not grounded, not able to conceive of being their fully conscious soul selves in this physical reality. Like, I see a lot of disconnect. You've got a lot of beautiful spiritually open beings that are completely ungrounded, totally not in this physical realm, able to make not only ends meet, but actually thrive in this physical paradigm. We haven't come here to just be out there. We've come here to have this physical experience, to learn consequence, to create in the physical through intent. And the way that we're born is to be programmed according to ancestral influences. There's a time lag, you know, in terms of what was right 5 generations ago and what's in our, you know, sort of subconscious programming for now. We have to question it and go, actually, you know, this isn't quite the situation that my great-grandfather or so on went through, and I need to awaken to that now. And I love how we're all here doing our work, putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And, you know, just to kind of, obviously I invited you into the StarPeace conversation, because I was saying to you before we kind of hit record, this whole concept came about because I got a direct download from my guidance system that in our universe, the war is over. Like, we've moved beyond this fight, this duality. We've moved into peace reigning supreme, but peace is not a state that's just like a flat line. It's a dynamic state, just like what you said about love and kindness, right? It's not like, oh, we're now at peace and we're all just here. It's choosing love to win in the most challenging situations. It's seeking, what would peace be here? You know, when all we want to do is rage and war and everything else. And we're bringing that to life. of course, I'm going to put forward all the ways that people can contact you. Do you want to like just list a few of your books that people can look up on Amazon if they want to purchase? Because, you know, I think your books are for children, right? Are they all children's books? Or
Yeah, they are.
We all have an inner child, right? So what speaks in our conversation today, if there was one book that you'd be like, this is the one for everyone who's listened, is there one or two or three that you want to mention?
Well, The Magic is Inside You has been my most interesting journey, because so many adults have reached out and said, this is exactly what I needed to read.
Nice.
So what I'm trying to do is take these very lofty ideas and break them down in a very consumable way so that children can be introduced to these concepts in a very manageable fashion, and for this to be the starting point of meaningful conversations with their grown-ups, basically. And of course, you know, when we do this stuff for ourselves, we then pour it all into our kids. And when we have that deep trust of self, that's what our kids inherit. And so when they go out into the world, you're worried about them navigating social media, you're worried about them navigating difficult people, you're worried about them navigating challenge. Fill them up to overflowing in all ways, that they are abundant in all ways. When they show up, they're prepared. You can trust them. You can trust them.
You trust you.
And you know, the times, exactly, you've got to trust yourself. And the times when my kids have been through difficult times, or I've helped other families navigate through times, and we're like, you've got this, you can do this. I know that you can do this. I'm going to step back. I'm still here holding space, but you can do this. I mean, and that is the greatest gifts that we can give our kids.
Yeah. And that's the same as birth. You have a woman, you have anyone, a woman laboring, sorry, I don't even like that word, a woman in the process of birthing her baby, and you've got someone there by her side saying, you've got this, you can do this, trust yourself,
relax into it, surrender.
Yeah, that changes everything. It's the difference between, if you don't dilate another, centimeter the next hour, then this is what we're going to do. Like, that might get some results, like push the baby out, but the consequences are dire. So yeah, I'm just so grateful for this conversation, Cathy. I'm so grateful for you and what you are sharing in this world today. It's just an absolute joy to have had this conversation. I can't wait to publish it. I'll put all your details in the text box. So folks, please do check out the conversation that Cathy had with Montel Williams as well, because it's really good, different angle of everything that was covered. But like, I'm sure you'll find this really nourishing, and I'd love your comments. I'd love to know how this has resonated with you. So please do like, do share, do subscribe, do let others know about this, because it's together. The game of chess is over. Duality, good, bad, right, wrong, it's gone. We're now each individual puzzle pieces of this unified puzzle piece, which is Paradise Earth as I see it, as you see it, our own version of it. But we're here to unify all opposing forces, not by making everyone the same, but by celebrating the individual uniqueness of all of us, because we are individual droplets in the ocean of the divine. And that's my last thing that I want to say here today. Anything else you'd like to finish with, Cathy, before we sign off?
Just be kind to yourself. Really be kind to yourself. It starts there, in kindness and love for self, and allow yourself to feel things, allow yourself the whole human experience. But all we can do is show up every day dedicated to elevation, evolution, and just in this process, let's just be gentle
and kind. Love it. Thank you everyone for opening your hearts to this conversation. So much love. Until the next time.